Well, good day. So we're talking about evidence for the Christian faith, and one of the things that I'm going to be talking about today is about design. So it's not about Christianity in specific, but about the fact that there's a God that created the heavens and the earth, and He created it to make sense, created it to work. I'll go look in the mirror and start paying attention to simple things. A quick look in the mirror and I see my eyeball and I say, well, how did that thing work? And well, obviously we've all been told this all evolved. So apparently one day some guy was walking through the woods and he kept smacking into trees. And so he decided what we're going to need to do, I'm going to need to evolve a way of seeing things. So he's going to evolve an eyeball. But what's interesting, it's not just an eyeball that you need to evolve, because there's all these parts in the eyeball. You learned this all in school, right? Because there's the cornea and the iris and the pupil and the lens, and then there's the retina, and all of these things have to line up exactly right. And then there's of course the goop that all of this stuff swims in, and it lines up just really nice. So that's all great. Then kind of the other thing that you need to evolve all at the same time for this process to even work, you need the optic nerve, which takes the message of the camera down to the processing center, right, to shine it on your screen, which I've been trying to figure out where's that screen, because I see stuff, the camera's working, I know, but somehow it shows up and I see it and it all makes sense. So that's pretty cool. And I wonder, how did this all happen? Because remember, this guy's trying to avoid the trees, right? So you need to see these things. The optic nerve, that one's an interesting one, because what if this guy walking through the forest, banging into trees, and he's trying to process this, and he's developed this camera, which just happens to work really well, that's great. But what if the camera was a PC and the brain, the processing center, was a Mac? Then what? So the optic nerve, maybe there's a modem or something, a transfer case that does the translation or whatever, but ultimately, whatever the optic nerve is carrying a message to the brain, and it's gotta work and it's gotta make sense. I don't know if you've seen these things. It's a smartphone, right? Remember the ones with the one camera? Yeah, there's a lot of design that went into this thing. The camera does all of the things that my eyeball actually automatically does. We talk about our fancy TVs, the 4K HD, smart TV, 3D, etc., so that it actually shows you an image that's actually quite similar to what the eyeball sees naturally. And nobody would think that this thing just kind of evolved, that even if you had all the parts and throw them into a box, that it would come out showing pictures, right? We couldn't imagine that, and yet somehow all it's trying to do is replicate the eye so that it can be a real life image that you see on the screen. And yet that's what your camera is doing, and we wouldn't assume that it happened by itself. To me, it's quite convincing. I look at my eyeball and I say, that's amazing. So then, while we're talking about the eyeball, it's an interesting thing that all we needed to avoid that tree was black and white. I remember when I was a little boy, they had TVs that were black and white, and you could actually see the tree that you were trying to avoid. All you need is black and white. That's all you would need. And God decided, let there be color. If you can see anyways, why not enjoy the beauty of this world that God's created? Now I'm seeing not only that it's functional and that God is functional, but that God is good and He wants you to see beautiful things. That's kind of interesting. So He decided to make it color. Then the next thing is God says, while we're at it, why don't we make two eyeballs? Because now you can measure distance. You'll see in stereo kind of, and you can measure distance, because ultimately I look and my eyes are 2.55 inches apart. And if my eyes are turned in at a degree of 86.7 degrees, then the camera must be exactly so far away from me so I could throw a pen from here and make it land right on that camera. It would actually work because my eyes can measure distance. Now it becomes really easy to avoid those trees. And not because you happen to evolve this thing, but because God designed us to see, and to see specifically. So again, looking at my face, there's the eyeball. That thing's overwhelming. They are overwhelming my eyeballs, or your eyeballs. And that's, I don't know, evidence enough that there's something specific going on in creation. And you could go on, this sense of smell, which there's beautiful smells, and there's horrible smells which warn you that there's something you don't want to go close to, etc. So that's all functional, and it's good, and it's also beautiful. It's interesting, my son ripped his Achilles tendon, and we said, wow, he's never going to be able to walk again. And the doctor said, no, it'll just grow itself back together. The tendon will find the heel, and it'll grow itself back together. And we said, wow, that's amazing, it's a miracle. And then a month later, they had a baby, and that baby had 2 Achilles tendons perfectly attached, and a heart that was beating, and an eyes that were seeing, nose that's smelling, a nose how to eat and stay alive, etc. It's really, really marvelous and amazing, and it's not a mistake, it's not an accident, it's not just kind of cool how coincidences came together. Someone's designing these things. So I go back to Genesis chapter 1, and I see God having this conversation and saying, let's make man in our image. And so God went ahead and did that. They did that. And so here we are created in His image, and we're created with purpose. We're not accidents. We're not celebrating, oh great, I didn't bang into a tree today. We're not doing that. We're actually here for a purpose, because we're created with design, with eyeballs, with a reproductive system, with a mouth that tastes, and a nose that smells, and ears that hear, and we're created with purpose and design. So we're not here just to roam through the earth and try to avoid trees for a few years, or to endure the struggle and the suffering of life until we can finally end it. And so to me, the fact that there's design just seems boldly obvious all around me. But the encouragement of that is that we're here for a purpose. We're not just roaming around trying to avoid trees. We're actually here to be alive, to live, to make life, and to process this world and to rule over this world in fantastic ways. And so I wake up in the morning, the reason to get up in the morning, things to do, people to meet, miracles to meet, really, and an opportunity to encourage other people to enjoy this life and to find our way back into the hands of the God who created us.